2004 was a really fucking good year for video games. Like, holy shit, just look at what came out during that year. Tons of genres were flourishing during that time, from strategy games, MMOs, RPGs, and so on. There was one genre that I feel had its most interesting years in terms of the evolution of the genre, and that was first-person shooters. You had Halo 2 completely changing console multiplayer and infecting the PC space in the process. Unreal Tournament 2004, which is widely considered to be one of the best arena shooters ever made. Half-Life 2, after its delays, is finally released and is still seen as one of the best shooters ever made thanks to its incredible pacing and varied locales. Then there was Doom 3. Doom 3 was the next numbered entry in the most important series for the genre, and while this set a great technical benchmark, the game itself is pretty controversial. Some like the horror focus 3 went with, while others, including myself, feel that Doom 3 isn't a fucking Doom game. So it's 2004 and you want to play a single player FPS where you go fast and shoot tons of monsters, preferably in hell. Let's talk about fucking Painkiller. Painkiller was made by People Can Fly, a Polish game studio with Painkiller as their first project, which was originally planned to be made over the course of a year. Thanks to their publisher Dreamcatcher though, they were able to get an extra year and more funding for the project. It was released in April of 2004, well before many of the really big releases that would happen later in the year. For this video, I played for the Black Edition of the game, which comes with the expansion Battle of Hell, which I'll also be covering. Oops, I skipped it. You know what? Let me open up Paint, and I'll remake the cutscene. Where is it? There it is. Okay. It is I, Patrick Painkiller. My wife is dead, and so am I. Who are you? I am an Angle, and I have come because you are very loud. Please take this bladed weapon and this book to travel to Purgatory and kill the 4 General of Hell. Okay, Angel. I will do that, as I, Patrick Painkiller, love to kill Damon. Now let's actually start the fucking game. The Cemetery is an alright introduction. It's no E1M1 from Doom or Duke 3D, but it's a solid intro to the type of enemies and level theme you run across in the first chapter. Its overall structure is more akin to Serious Sam, where you enter arenas and enemies just spawn out of nowhere, leaving you to deal with hordes of monsters. Unlike Serious Sam though, maps are frankly much more streamlined and smaller in scale. We also get our first 2 weapons in the Cemetery, the Painkiller and the Shotgun. The Painkiller is your standard melee weapon with a few tricks. Holding down the fire button transforms it into a blender, tearing apart enemies that get in your way, which is quite effective and very satisfying early on. There is also an alt fire which launches the front end, yanking enemies towards you, and also providing a damaging laser if it's stuck to a solid surface. As the game goes on though, and the enemy roster gets more lethal both in close range and long range, I end up not using the Painkiller as often, sadly. The shotgun is how I believe any shotgun in any shooter should be. Your bread and butter, the weapon you default to in any normal scenario. It has a devastating blast against uncommon enemies flying, and there's tons of ammo for the thing as well, so it's incredibly effective early on when handling hordes. The alt fire is the strongest attack in the game as well. You send a free shot and it can immediately start firing and kill any frozen monster in one shot. You don't get too many free shots, especially early on. This attack can bring even the strongest enemies in the game to their knees. Okay, so you might be wondering what's the deal with these green wisps appearing when an enemy dies. That's a soul. Painkiller still uses conventional health pickups, but they are rare. So your main source of recovery is just picking up individual souls, which only give 1 HP each, and these souls only exist for a short period of time. It's an interesting method of encouraging the player to push forward and get close to enemies, as if you fall back, you'll chip them away at a distance, and you won't be able to pick up their souls in time. Even at 100 HP, picking up souls is extremely important, as they will still increase your health, allowing you to reach a HP cap of 250, and then there's also the Demon Morph ability. Collecting 66 souls allows the player to enter this mode for a limited time and completely destroy any enemy that gets in their way. So you have this system of getting souls to recover health, but also making sure you don't collect too many, because if you do, you activate Demon Morph, and if there's no one around, it's just a waste. After a long explanation of some mechanics, we are done with the Cemetery and off to the Atrium Complex, which is more of the same, but instead of Skeleton Knights, we got Axe-Run Cultists and different skeletons. The first secret in this level does give us one of Painkiller's most famous weapons, the Stake Gun. It's not a gun that shoots meat, but instead wooden stakes that pins enemies to walls. It's a slight arc, and timing shots while going fast is difficult at first, but there's a strong groove you can get into, pinning every enemy you see. The alt-fire for the stake gun is an underbarrel grenade launcher, which is incredible for groups, but the explosives are rare in this chapter, so I'm primarily going to be blasting hordes with the shotgun. Another level down, and we get my least favorite level of this chapter. The catacombs is a nice idea, and it fits with all the skeletons, but the tight tunnels mixed with suicide bombers just puts a bad taste in my mouth. The mini-boss of this level does not help with things, with it just being some lame puzzle fight. But hey, at least someone found the level interesting enough to take screenshots of it and put it in their game. The Cathedral is my favorite level of Chapter 1 due to me finding it incredibly gorgeous, as I'm a sucker for this type of architecture. Painkiller uses an engine made by People Can Fly for the game called the Pain Engine, and it's a solid engine that runs really good, which makes me a bit sad that not many people picked it up for their own projects. But remember, it's 2004, the fucking Source engine came out, and Unreal Engine 2 got some big upgrades as well. For some reason, we have boss fights at the end of every chapter, and these boss fights are the worst part of the game. So, I'm just gonna ignore them and speed this footage up. And I accidentally skipped the cutscene again. Alright, hang on. Alright, I still got pain open. Don't worry. I have killed Big Zombo, and I am now on my way to kill more Diabolos.
Hello, I am Girl. Please take me. I can guide you to next Diabolos.
Okay. Prison is the first level that is locked behind difficulty, which is something I don't like at all, since on Trauma, the game's highest difficulty, the final chapter is locked, and honestly isn't as enjoyable compared to Nightmare. The level itself is okay, except for these fucking turrets that are on corners and completely drain your health. There's not much to say about Opera House either. There's ninjas and whatever these fucking things are. And it looks nice. Chapter 2's level quality is honestly all over the place compared to other chapters, with these two levels being mediocre at best, and the next level being one of my favorites in the whole game. Asylum is the one level where the horror elements really shine. The harrowing ambience, the grotesque enemy designs takes me aback and makes me feel like I'm playing a completely different game. And its short length and size also makes it stand out from further levels that aim to be larger. But after one of the best levels in the game, there is one of the worst. Snowy Bridge fucking sucks. I hate it. It's bad, it drags on for way too long, the slippery ice physics on this bridge is one of the worst fights in the whole game, but we do get Painkiller's most famous weapon. But we barely get any ammo for it until Chapter 3, so I'll talk about it later. Town is another great level. These witches are a bit annoying to hit with a stake gun, and it's incredibly linear, but the whole Burning Town aesthetic and music is really strong. The music in this game as a whole is really solid, with a lot of tracks I go back to every once in a while. The ambient music varies in quality, but none is really memorable. But the battle music has some great metal tracks that fit the horror punk tone? I don't really know how else to describe this tone. Either way, the music is fucking tight. Chapter 3 easily has the best levels in terms of sheer bloodbaths, probably due to us acquiring our final weapon in the game, the rocket launcher minigun. It's a rocket launcher, and also a minigun, and that's perfect. And since there's tons of ammo now, we can finally talk about the famous electro driver. It shoots shurikens and lightning. It's not too strong, but solid enough for small clusters of enemies. But if you fire both at the same time, it turns into a fucking Tesla coil. And that's Painkiller's weapon roster. Varied and powerful, with only the grenade launcher becoming worthless after obtaining the rocket launcher. And that's pretty good if I say so myself. Train Station includes an interesting side objective as well. Don't pick up any souls. Every level has a side objective ranging from using only a certain weapon to finding every secret. The rewards for these are cards that can be purchased by using gold that can be found. Silver cards provide useful passives, and gold cards are one-time uses that can offer incredible buffs. The card system is an interesting experiment, but sometimes I forget I even have them. They do make bosses go by much faster, thankfully. Factory is cool, it has the best track in the whole game, but again, there isn't much to say. Military base is the same, these tanks and cannons have a bit too much health, but it's just another bloodbath and more arenas, and now there's a UFO, and we enter ruins, and we fight another boss. This chapter kinda has a theme with the castle and the palace, and I'm really running out of things to say. The biggest issue this game has is that it's very repetitive, and every level is incredibly linear, so there's very little to say on each individual level. The game kinda blurs together, and before my replay of this video, I wouldn't be able to think of a layout for the majority of levels. And this is an issue, which will get worse when I talk about the expansion. I can go on about how there is a massive roster of enemies, but most of them are just variants from one another. There's a guy that runs at you, a guy that shoots at you, throws shit at you, or flies around. Near the home stretch, we have two semi-visually interesting levels and another strong contender for the worst level in the game, thanks to this one section. Fuck the docks. But then there is Hell, and you'd think a game like this would have Hell be quite generic with lava and fire everywhere and volcanoes, but instead it's a collection of wars frozen in time, screams and sounds of battles echo across the entire map. And the centerpiece is a mushroom cloud, the greatest tragedy of all. It's a bit out of place, and it is also a very interesting view on what Hell could really be. The level also has a boss. It's not very good. And that's how the game ends. Let's cover the expansion. Battle of Hell is more of the same. It's 10 new levels, and a lot of them feel like repeats of levels from the base game. Orphanage is similar to Asylum, and Stone Pit could be compared to Catacombs. There are some unique level ideas though, like Looney Park, which is incredible. up until this dull on-rail section. But there is also a level named Leningrad. Leningrad might be the best level in the entire game. You have to play at a slightly slower pace, but man, this fucking music and the war cries and oh my god, it's so good. The expansion also added 2 new weapons, the SMG Flamethrower combo and the Bolt Gun Heater Bouncy Ball Grenade Launcher combo. The former is a weapon I barely use due to how bland it is, and the latter I only use to get long-range targets thanks to a scope. The problem with these weapons is that their purpose is already met with the base roster. Why use the SMG when I have a minigun? Why use the bolt gun when I got a stake gun? Overall, the expansion is average at best, and I'd honestly only recommend it if you want more Painkiller or just to experience Leningrad. And that description of average can also be used on the base game itself, if you're a person that prefers a little more meat on your bones. But I still think the game as a whole is quite enjoyable. It has problems, but its soundtrack, weapons, and overall aesthetic struck with me even though I won't go back anytime soon. What happened afterwards? People Can Fly tried to make an atmospheric first-person horror game, but due to a list of issues was unable to get it done. Thanks to Epic, the company was able to stay afloat working on Gears of War. Years later, they would put out Bulletstorm, which, depending on who you ask, is either a terrible game or a great game, and is something I want to cover at a later date. Now they are an independent company again, working with Square Enix on a new game called Outriders? Hang on, I need to see this. Where's my bunny hopping? Where's my There are also a bunch of companies formed by ex-People Can Fly developers such as Farm 51, Destructive Creations, and The Astronauts, which are now making Witchfire, which, while they say is in Painkiller 2, it's the closest thing to it, as the franchise hasn't gotten a proper sequel, but instead a bunch of standalone expansions which aren't worth your time. I might cover those in a year, who knows. Don't bother me about it. And did Painkiller leave an impact? You could argue Doom 2016 took inspirations, with almost every weapon having an alt-fire and the arena structure, but the former could have just been an idea they had internally without influence, and the latter could have been taken from Serious Sam. A Medieval does have a system akin to the Demon Morph mechanic, but done way better. You know what? Just go buy a Medieval, play that. Also Dusk, play that as well. That's it. That's the video. I don't know how to end this. Next video is on the RTS genre. I'm gonna need to find a way to get my frustrations across about that. Fuck. Faster than a bullet, terrifying scream, enraged and full of anger, he's half man and half machine. Rise the metal monster, breathing smoke and fire, closing in with vengeance soaring high.